Hi there, this is a Polish Up Your Pedagogy video on how to use East Lothian's numeracy frameworks to plan teaching and learning in your setting. My name is Janie Henderson and I'm part of the pedagogy team, and I'm with my colleague Rob Dewar, also from the team. Before we get started, here's how the professional learning in this video links to the GTCS standards and East Lothian's pedagogy learning sale. Planning learning effectively links to standard 3.1, curriculum and pedagogy, and in particular 3.1.1. Plan effectively to meet learners' needs. In East Lothian, we have high expectations for teaching and learning, so the content of this video links to the expectation that learning experiences are structured appropriately to be challenging enough to stretch learners and ensure progress. The learning intention for this session is to be able to use the East Lothian Council numeracy frameworks to plan teaching and learning. The teaching and learning cycle should be used as a basis for planning. As you can see in the diagram, it has 4 elements to it. When thinking about our learners, we need to think about where they are now. Where do you want them to be? How will they get there? And how will you know when they get there? Each of these elements are critical when doing our short and long-term planning. So when we're using the frameworks to plan some new learning in numeracy, we should be considering this teaching and learning cycle. We should be asking ourselves these 4 questions at the beginning of the planning process, and we should be using the frameworks to plan the intended learning and teaching, building on prior knowledge to meet the needs of all learners. Our frameworks are based on research and the work of Bob Wright and Jim Martland, international authors and recognised leaders in the field of numeracy intervention and early number instruction. They outline 9 guiding principles in their work, and these principles underpin our frameworks. The first principle, inquiry-based learning or problem-based learning. Here children should be presented with genuine problems, which requires them to think hard to solve them. Initial and ongoing assessment. Teaching is informed by both initial and ongoing assessment. The initial assessment allows the teacher to gain an informed understanding of children's current knowledge and strategies, and the results of that assessment then inform your next steps. Ongoing assessment, as you start to deliver your teaching and learning, can come from observations and reflections. This is equally as important as the initial assessment, as you teach just beyond the cutting edge and adjust your teaching to suit your learners' needs. Principle 3 is the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky defined the area just beyond the child's cutting levels of knowledge as the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. By assessing our pupils, we can focus our instruction so that we can move children beyond their current level of knowledge. Principle 4 is quality crafted lessons. We as teachers need to use our professional judgment to select approaches to meet the needs of our learners. We make decisions about what settings or materials we're going to use and how we're going to use them based on our ongoing observations. Developing more sophisticated strategies. For this principle, the teacher needs to have an understanding of a learner's numerical knowledge so that they can then develop more sophisticated strategies. Observe and fine-tune learning. We use our observations and then make micro adjustments or fine-tune our teaching in that moment based on those observations. Symbolising and notating. It's important that we give children time to talk about their strategies and over time start to notate and formalise their thinking. Sustained thinking and reflection. We need to give children time to solve problems and give them time to reflect on their own and others' ways of solving problems. And finally, intrinsic satisfaction. This links to Principle 8. If learners are given thinking time to solve problems and time to reflect on their solutions and strategies and they become successful problem solvers, then they will gain that intrinsic satisfaction as they realise they are making progress. That reward can be more powerful for some than peer recognition or teacher affirmation. All of these principles are outlined further in the purple book on pages 5 to 8. The numeracy frameworks have been designed to include the explicit development of tasks along particular dimensions or themes of mathematisation. Mathematisation is already incorporated into the frameworks for you as practitioners. It's been done for you. So what is mathematisation? In moment-to-moment instruction, teachers can observe students' responses to a task and pitch a subsequent task or comment just beyond the cutting edge of the student's current knowledge to elicit mathematisation. So it's about what you do or say to the child to move them on to that next step in their learning. It's about micro-adjusting your lesson to meet the needs of your learner. It's what we do all the time as teachers. In numeracy, it allows us over time to develop the learner's mathematical sophistication. This development can happen in a number of ways. Or it can happen by different themes or dimensions. Structuring number and extending the range. As you move through the frameworks from nursery through primary to secondary, the structuring of numbers and range of numbers is built into the content of the frameworks. For example, the frameworks make connections between numbers. So when we teach 8 add 8 equals 16, we also teach that 16 can be 10 and 6. These links are in the frameworks. The frameworks also extend the range of numbers. For example, in nursery, the frameworks outline calculating half of a cake or half of a piece of Play-Doh, but by primary 5, we can plan for learners to work with a range of unit and composite fractions, not just a half. Unitising and decimalising. Unitising refers to the understanding of numbers as a unit or a single amount so that it can be counted. For example, if you ask a student how many 7s in 49, they may count up in 7s. 1 7, 2 7s, 3 7s, 4 7s, etc. And each 7 is a unit. Decimalising is understanding that numbers are organised into ones, tens, hundreds, thousands and so on. It's a kind of unitising, and both of them are incorporated into the frameworks. Notating. This refers to children making their own written record to show how they solve an arithmetical task. It may be by recording a calculation orally, then by informal jottings, or by drawing a calculation on an empty number line, through to more formal written algorithms by primary 6. While formalising and generalising is about widening the type of tasks that learners can use their strategies to solve. So if you know the partitions of 6, can you order them? And then can you use that to work out and notate the partitions of 7 or 8? And finally, distancing the setting of materials. Here the word setting doesn't actually mean the materials themselves the teacher is using, like the counters or the Cuisenaire rods or the 10 frames, but it actually means the way these materials are used to teach. So for example, when teaching multiplication using arrays, learners can initially build arrays with counters or beads. We as teachers can then show the arrays to our pupils, but over time we can start to show it for shorter periods, then gradually screen or cover parts of the array, so the dots can't be seen. We're moving from using concrete materials to pictorial to abstract. We're moving from allowing our learners to manipulate it, see it, then flash it, screen it, and check to see if their solutions are correct. Then we can ask pupils to express and explain it to justify their thinking. This is distancing the setting. The frameworks don't do this bit for us. It's up to us as teachers to use our knowledge of our pupils and skills to scaffold children through that process. I'm going to hand you over to Rob, who's going to talk you through where the frameworks are on Google Drive and where other resources are stored and how to access them all.